What makes a bad boss? I'm Penny Lane, and In the Driver's Seat starts now. Welcome to In the Driver's Seat, where we explore the lives of extraordinary individuals who drive their industries forward. My next guest is Dr. Paul Donovan, a powerhouse in leadership transformation and author of Bosses Behaving Badly. Welcome to the show, Dr. Paul Donovan.
Hello, Penny. It's lovely to be here with you.
Great to see you, Paul. Let's dive straight in. Now, you have an interesting story right from birth. Tell us about how you were brought into this world.
Yes, I do have an interesting story because my lovely mum, who is still alive, a beautiful elderly lady, tells me this story from time to time because when I was born, I was the second of twins, but my mum did not know she was having twins. So she already had two boys. She was very keen on having one girl. Instead, she got two boys because my twin brother was born, and then the doctor said, yep, okay, we have another one there. We were both born breech, and here we are. So all four of us now. And it's been a really wonderful journey, yeah.
Amazing. You came into the world fighting. Now, Paul, you had a really good career, a really good time at school, and you became the school captain. You were voted in by all of your peers, but that surprised you. Why was that?
It surprised me because I'm inherently a quiet person. I am more introverted by nature. And I did not realize the kind of groundswell support that I had amongst my peers. I was in a school of 1,200 kids, and I easily got the highest number of votes and ultimately became school captain. And I was told that later about the votes, and that shocked me. You see, most of my relationships are carried out in the context of smaller groups and conversations. I never was a sort of stand up and perform guy. You wouldn't see me in a musical, although I'd kind of like to be in one, frankly, but I didn't ever have the courage to do it. And so I was shocked. There was a support there. There was a strength of connections around my student community, which I thought I had with a lot of people, but when they all got together, well, it was a big message. It was the first wake-up that maybe I'm offering something here that I did not realize I had.
Yeah, rich connections with lots of people. That really is a gift. Then you decided to go into science, and a little bird told me it was so you could dissect bodies in peace and study human anatomy. Tell me a little bit more about your journey into science and what you get out of that.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. I left high school and went and studied science. And you know, my first inclination to do science was only because the science laboratories at school were by far the quietest rooms. And I loved the quiet. So I thought maybe science could work. And I was fascinated in the human body, always have been, and fascinated with movement. So I did a degree in anatomy and physiology, and we worked with cadavers. And then I went on to teach human anatomy back at the university, where I dissected and taught physiotherapists very detailed musculoskeletal anatomy, and post-grad physios as well, actually. And I loved it. I wanted to know, Penny, what was under the skin, what was there, and I definitely found that out. And you know, I always remember, Penny, on the first day that I'd be teaching human anatomy, and I'd have to uncover a cadaver, and I'd do it so carefully because, you know, I'd be listening for the thud where a student would faint on the first day.
What is a cadaver? I don't even know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, cadaver is a dead body.
Oh,
but
okay.
but the cadavers we used were all embalmed. They were preserved.
Yes.
So I used to be part of that embalming process from time to time, and then when they were preserved, we could then dissect them and show all the muscles and the ligaments and tendons and nerves and arteries and all the organs in the abdominal cavity. So I just loved growing that knowledge. But you know what, Penny? What I discovered was what I loved most was teaching. I did not know that I loved teaching, and that's where I discovered that I loved working with small groups teaching human anatomy, and I did that for 25 hours a week for 6 years teaching human anatomy, and I just adored it.
And what came next after that?
Well, then, you see, I was doing a master's degree, Penny, and I was doing it in exercise and sports science, and I finished that master's degree where I was looking at the functional anatomy of the foot and how it worked throughout walking. But, you know, I realized I had this moment because we had to, in my research, I had to get people to walk along this platform and put their foot on what's called a force platform, and it would measure how much force people were putting into the ground as they walked. And I was standing next to another co-researcher, and he said, all right, subject number 2, walk. And we were videoing them and measuring the ground, what's called the ground reaction forces. And I suddenly thought, I don't think you should talk to that person like that. He's more than just subject number 2. And I realized, I think I'm in the wrong job. I don't want to be researching ground reaction forces. You know, I'm more interested in the relational connection we have with this subject rather than the data we get from them. And it dawned on me, I need to get out of researching traditional science because there were people around me who were much better at it than me, and I realized I was much more interested in the science of relationships. And
so that moment took you on another trajectory. And what was that?
Well, then I went into, and I worked for a very large pharmaceutical company for almost 10 years, and it was the biggest in the world, and it won the Fortune 500, 7 years running, and it was a wonderful organization and it was called Merck. That company, this was many years ago now, that company has now been bought and changed into other organizations largely. But that company, I joined them because they had a worldwide reputation that they were on the cutting edge of leadership development. And I thought, I want to find out about business, and I also want to find out about how people grow. So my initial interest was working in that organization in all sorts of sales and marketing, and then ultimately in the human resources group, where I could take my deep interest in the science of relationships and learn them and learn how to help people in them in the context of business.
And you've been a consultant now to lots of leaders across all different industries. Is there a common thread?
Yes, there are some common threads because while I work across all different industries, I'm inevitably drawn to people who want to create better working relationships with one another. You see, the people I work with, Penny, generally understand that the limit of performance of their business is going to be set by the quality of the relationships they create with their teams, with their colleagues, with their stakeholders. And so if you know the centrality and the criticality of the quality of those relationships, then you can change any business. So I'm drawn, ultimately I was drawn to people, and I've worked with beautiful clients who I love dearly, and I've worked with them for many years, to people who want to create better relationships around them, better teams, places where people are more at home, Penny. They can share more of themselves, bring more of themselves to work, innovate more, push boundaries more, create better outcomes. It all comes through better relationships.
And is that what sparked the book, Bosses Behaving Badly?
Yes, it is. You know, I have this book here, and I published it earlier this year. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. It was the culmination of many years' work. It was the culmination of partly my doctoral studies, because I then later on did a PhD in working with executive teams. And then after years of working with them, I realized I wanted to help bosses be better. And bosses have, Penny, this incredible rank. They have power in the rank of being a boss. And good bosses use that power very, very well. They use it in a way, for instance, to make sure that they're approachable and not intimidating. They use it to be respectful and not inappropriate. Conflict competent, not conflict averse. You see, these are all different kinds of power use, and bosses who are really good use that power beautifully. And I became absolutely dedicated, transfixed, in fact, by the idea that helping bosses behave better and become better bosses changes many people's lives. Not just the boss's life, many other people's lives.
Many other people's too. And just the title of being a boss can be intimidating in itself. Do you ever find that people are intimidated by people, not because of the actual person, but because of their title?
Yeah, that's a very searching question. And this is something which I remind bosses of frequently, that they are more intimidating than they realize. And they're not just intimidating because of the way they behave. Certainly bosses who criticize others openly, who close down conversations unilaterally, those bosses who become unavailable to other people and inaccessible, well, those bosses are more intimidating, that's for sure. But truthfully, most bosses are far more intimidating than they imagine because of the impact of their role. Just being the boss creates some level of intimidation. And so waking up, compassionately waking up bosses to how intimidating they are, no matter, even if they're wonderful bosses, is a really important role I have.
Do you have a strategy for changing people's behaviour that are in leadership?
Yeah, Penny, I use many things over the years. I've got a very large tool kit, a very large bag with tools in them. But you know what? One tool I do use is giving people feedback through a 360 tool. And so one of the 360 tools I use is the Leadership Diamond Index, the Diamond Power Index.
Yes.
Sorry. And the Diamond Power Index is a tool, and it's one that I've discussed in this book, actually, because it's the best tool I know that measures a manager's use of power. And so, for instance, that tool will give you direct feedback on how intimidating you are. So I utilize feedback when a manager gets feedback from a dozen or more of their colleagues and maybe their boss and people underneath them and their peers, and they see that they are, for instance, only 30% of people are experienced as more intimidating than them. That's a wake up that it's very hard for a coach to give someone unless the coach has some objective data.
Yes.
So I use objective data. Now, that's not the only 360 tool I use, but it's a very good one I use.
And all of this is available in the book. But I can't believe we're out of time. I could talk to you all day long. And all of these tools are in the book, Bosses Behaving Badly, and it's available at all good bookstores, and it's available on Amazon as well. I can't wait to read it. I'm sure as a boss myself, I can learn a lot from it. So thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show. Dr. Paul Donovan, thank you so much.
Pleasure, Penny. Pleasure.
In the Driver's Seat is brought to you by the Perfect Cosmetics Company. This is Tika, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Tika. We'll have more in just a few minutes.